And welcome back. I've just seen something flash up on my screen saying Greta Thunberg is apparently walking through Glasgow and getting rock star treatment. Well, perfectly entitled to give her rock star treatment if you wish. I'd like to have her on the show and ask her some questions, but I suspect that won't be happening. Joining me now, very pleased, talking about that very subject. Well, not Greta Thunberg, but talking about COP26, Connor Tomlinson, political commentator and policy director at the British Conservation Alliance. Connor, hello. Thanks for joining me.
Good evening, Nick. I'm sorry I'm not quite as high profile as Greta, but I'm sure we'll manage.
I don't think I was drawing a comparison there, but that was a pretty good link introduction in. I'll give you that. Well done. Now, look, should I be excited about COP26 or should I be should I be less grumpy than I've been? Frankly, I'm going to come clean about this and tell me, I've no idea where you stand on this, but just basically tell me if I'm right or wrong, because I think the British public are now getting lectured. You cannot pick up a newspaper, a TV screen, a digital screen, wherever you may be, and there's someone telling us, A, the world is going to end, B, it's pretty much our fault unless we replace every boiler in our house or we convert to electric cars or whatever. I do feel that it's a bit preachy. It's coming from the pulpit as such, whether it's Greta Thunberg or Boris Johnson now. It's going to bring huge taxes at the end of the day down on our heads. And I've got a feeling that it's all because of this conference, and within a week or two, we'll just find that we're talking less about it and it'll be business as usual. 26 COPs and not a lot's been achieved, has it?
Well, I don't think so. I'm attending, and aside from the events that we're hosting with the British Conservation Alliance, I've taken to calling it Flop26 because it seems to be a big party at the taxpayers' expense, much like the earlier G7 summit and God knows else what, where they all went on the gas guzzlers via plane and an envoy and decided to meet and shake hands and have a big load of drinks without all their masks on, even they're telling us to wear them. There's just going to be a lot of conversations about how to spend all our money on a lot of international and national government schemes to reduce emissions when essentially all the big polluters aren't at the table. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of public tone and tenor, because I suspect, as the conversation has been circulating in the last few days about a net zero referendum, a lot of the unhappy Tory voters who voted blue and got green would vote no on this. And you've only got to go by the fact that, I mean, if you look at Sky's ratings, for example, the news is pretty consistent. As soon as they do their climate hour, well, it's straight off. In the toilet and it bounces straight back up.
Now, are we wrong? So let's be objective for a moment. Should we learn more about it? Because in a way, I applaud the British public who go about their daily business, and some of them go to electric cars for whatever reason. I mean, look, I've got an electric car, but I bought it for the gadgets and the things. I didn't actually have the environment at the back of my mind when I bought it. But I think the British public, they're conscious of it. They probably are more mindful about the carbon footprint. My God, how could they not be, given the fact it's been rammed down their throats? But it seems to me there's those little things you can do. The public are probably doing them, and yet we're about to slam them with tax after tax and cost after toss, which I think is going to drive people away from, shall we say, the cause.
I think it's a very planned economic approach, and I wrote about this a little while ago, where those are the likes of Kamala Harris and some of the Labour politicians were saying, we need to criminalise climate denial and crack down on public opposition to the idea that we need to reach net zero.
Which is shocking.
Well, exactly. And not only does it violate America's First Amendment, first of all, and also the British liberal sensibilities, but the idea that you can berate someone into accepting your ideas, well, no good idea ever came at the point of a gun. And a lot of people were far more concerned about the local familial issues, how much money they're going to be spending on heating and eating, where's their job coming from, are you cutting their industry they've worked in for X amount of years because you're doing some big green pilot scheme. They're rather concerned about that rather than the abstract idea that in 2050 the big sun monster is going to descend from the sky and eat us all up. And as you're correct, the British public do have a sort of innate conservation-based mentality. We like clean air, we like clean water, we like our beautiful skylines, and that's why a lot of people pay patronage to things at the National Trust. But they don't have the same connectivity as some people on the continent might if they're big fans of the EU, where we like these big bureaucratic streams and we're happy for someone miles away in an office to run our entire lives by the metric of punitive taxation. We would prefer to make conscious choices and allow the market to dictate more environmentally friendly alternatives like free range or fair trade, etc., to be purchasable by that. But then the government's planned economic measures like lockdown and furlough, for example, are making costs go up, Same with these taxes. So you're going to make it harder for the average consumer to make environmentally conscious choices.
Well, it's extraordinary because the Resolution Foundation has said that it won't, by 2026, average incomes, average households could be paying an extra £3,000 in tax. That's huge. And of course, this comes on top of rising inflation, which will dent savings, will put up costs and so forth. And yet the government seem determined to plough in and impose these costs on us because we're going to save the world. Britain cannot save the world here, can they? That's the bottom line when it comes to this green, the carbon footprint. Whatever we did, if overnight we became net zero, we could not save the world, could we, under the threat that they perceive it is?
Well, I've got a little disturbing statistic for you for just how much it will cost us compared to what the effects will be. So I did a paper with the Adam Smith Institute earlier in the year, and it broke down the costs of exactly how much it would take for Britain to have a wholly net zero grid. So between now and 2028, we'd need all the batteries in the world, 80% of which are made in China, by the way, and we just gave up the world's largest lithium deposits in Afghanistan, so we don't have control of that. But we need all those batteries for the next 10 years to stop. Everyone's got to stop their electric cars, stop their domestic grids. Obviously, every other country is pursuing renewables. All got to go to Britain. It's going to cost $2.9 trillion. And it'll only make 27% of consumer electricity demand, and it won't have any safeguards against the outages, which, when we modelled it, they lasted 21 days before. So, massive power outages like we saw in Germany, and we just saw in China, so they've now opened 250 coal power plants, no storage capacity, very little energy generation, and it's going to cost the earth.
And that's political failure, isn't it, Connor? Because, this is something they would have been able to work out quite a long while ago.
Definitely. Well, if you look at, as you said in your last segment, a lot of the civil servants are writing this, not like Alex Sharma and that. The concerning thing is, so if you pour through the electric car ban, for example, all right, sorry, not the electric car ban, the petrol car ban for the electric cars by 2035. Okay, not enough charging ports, not enough batteries. The electric car capacity isn't there. If you're pursuing the renewable grids at the same time, the cost is going to go up. There's no second-hand car market. And all of these statistics should have been included in that document for hundreds of government researchers to pore over. So the concerning thing is, okay, either me, an idiot sitting in his bedroom working remotely, has come up with all these ideas and written a little piece on it saying, hey, did you guys miss this? Either they didn't spot that, very well-paid government researchers, experts in their field, or they just disincluded it from all the papers and that they're basing things on because it doesn't fit the narrative. And that's the concerning thing. Our political class are running these ideas without much concern for the costs of the average household because they want to be seen as planetary saviours.
It sounds like it can only end in tears. It's going to be a lot of financial pain, and we will wait and follow with interest the next few days. Connor Tomlinson, political commentator and policy director at the British Conservation Alliance. You know where to find him. Thanks very much for joining us on that one.